Hey friends, Ask Robin Black, episode 3. Freaky already. Not to be confused with the Ask Robin Black with a hashtag that I used to do. I think I did at the old job. I think I did 6 or 7 of those. 3 words. You can still use the hashtag on Twitter. But so this has been really a cool thing for me to get to do. I try not to think about these questions. I'll glance at them. I try not to think too hard about them because for me, at least, I think my pleasure is in trying to work them out. I've been having some chats with some friends lately, and my buddy Brendan Schaub, when I went on his show, he called me a guru, which was a compliment I know coming from him, but I'm nothing like that. And I know that he meant it as a compliment. I don't mean that's a bad thing necessarily. It's just, I'm not an authority on stuff. My thinking is that I want to work it out and use things, ideas that we've been exposed to and work out concepts, in hopes that people come to interesting conclusions or it causes them to have other questions. So I'm not an authority I don't think I'm an authority on anything. Not even my own life. But I do enjoy trying to work out things and try to find answers and like letting yourself, curiosity is just the greatest thing. Like it's the greatest thing and you can develop it. I'm going to talk this week with a doctor who actually reached out to me after, I think, Ask Robin Black episode 2. And he's been doing research on your ability to train creativity and it's fascinating. So we're going to Skype and I'll share that stuff with you guys in a couple of weeks. We got stuff coming out on the YouTube channel all week long, but I'm going to visit my wife in Dallas on Tuesday. But we stocked up a bunch of stuff with Ramdean. But we're going to get to some questions, and I'm in a real positive mood. I guess that's pretty redundant since I'm like most positive most of the time. Anyone who knows me, like Mark, you've been around me now for 2 weeks every single day. Generally, I'm looking at a glass that's almost full all the time, right? But I feel good today. I feel really optimistic and positive and happy, and I'm feeling very fulfilled getting to work with my friends and realizing how limitless and how little structure I'm going to have going forward, being able to kind of be creative and come up with cool things. So, and that once you start thinking like that way, man, you can snowball that thinking and you can build on that thinking. And then all of a sudden, that's where you get to the possibility of coming up with really cool new ideas. And I think that's something that I did glance at these questions. My buddy Akasambo, and I want to thank him, and I probably always will thank him. He was somebody who, when we did the old show, one word with a hashtag, he used to send the most interesting questions, and then he offered to gather them, and he's in Germany too. Gather them and then list them and send them to me and help me organize them every time. And I know life gets busy and he may not be able to do it every time, but it's been really great. And I think he even has a question. I told him, please don't stop asking him just if you're organizing. So what we do here, if you haven't seen the other 2 or the ones that I used to do, it was a similar show. We take questions. They are often in the world of fighting, but they've also transferred because we are seeing that studying fighting is giving us all kinds of insights into life and how you can apply rules in a fight or rules, concepts from training or concepts from overcoming things or any of these things. You can apply them to all areas of your life. It's been something we've really started to see more and more, us together. And it's fascinating. And now lately, my perspective has changed a little recently. So Rogan, who has been so helpful to me, thanks, man. I fucking love you, man. I always drink I forgot my Rogan mug when I went over to the studio the other day. It was weird. I'm also trying not to slurp, but I have ice in here. It's iced coffee, so it's hard not to. So when I was on Rogan's Fight Companion with Eddie and Brendan and Brian, and it was fun. There was another guest there, and I've so rudely forgotten his name. Really cool guy. And so we were talking about something, and I was trying to drag it back to fighting, which I don't do because I need to, well, I was going to say I don't do because I just need to talk about fighting all the time, but that might not be true. I don't know why I do that. I guess I'm obviously obsessed, but I also do it because I was trying to pull lessons from fighting as examples to apply. Now I'm realizing, rather than I like flip the perspective, rather than looking at how studying fighting can apply to this album or doing this or anything, or, now I'm taking anything and other things and other concepts and applying it back in reverse. You know what I mean? Things that we learn, and almost everything can be applied to or interpreted or compared or in some way, put with fighting, and you can find the reflection in it. And that to me is starting to be fascinating, to think in the opposite direction, which I think changing your perspective is a really good thing. You should do it often as you can. But so we have been trying to answer questions about fighting and figuring out what we can do with our lives and with our work and with ideas and relationships, everything. Now we're taking some of these questions are about other things, and we're applying them back to fighting. So it's the opposite. What happened when you started your YouTube channel and this happened? Well, now we can apply it in reverse. So this is an unwilling and uncomfortable push and pull of using fighting as a lens to everything, and then taking anything and trying to figure it out through the lens of fighting. So it's been a fascinating one, and it's fun. And I was talking with Mark just before we sat down here, and there's a simplicity for me, a real simplicity to being able to live your life with a perspective, with something. My life is lived through a very simple philosophy that is my own. I've learned it from other people and other ideas and stuff, but essentially the things that that I've learned from studying the thing that I love to study teaches my life, and my life teaches me how to study that thing. It's so simple. And it's and these last couple of weeks of having this total freedom that I now have, and, early in the book, one of my books where I make notes, I wrote, turn this, stumbling block into a stepping stone. And I don't mean a stepping stone to something, just take a step up. But it's been a really, really interesting couple of weeks. I miss my friends. I've only seen Ramdeen twice a week, and that's been weird. So I saw Ramdeen. We're going to Montreal together to commentate TKO, so that'll be fun. I should get to some questions, right? That is what we do here. Or is it? So my man Duff, what are some fighting cliches that you think are true, and which do you disagree with? Okay. Now, so as I was glancing these over, there's another idea that I think is really powerful, and that is to combine concepts, right? It's really good to read two different books at a time. As your brain, as you go to bed, those different ideas, or to listen to one book and read another, unrelated, but there's always a relationship to it. And then whether we're trying to combine, mixed martial arts started with the combination of ideas, different fighting ideas. It's become something much more than that. But that's why you try to combine ideas. So I was thinking about how we could take a couple of questions sometimes and combine them and see what that does. So rather than just take here, what's the question, which one, and what do you think? Take two ideas and put them together and see what that does. So I thought I would take Duff's question and then add it with at Ad City Asheth 14. I have bad little micro weird vision, so Mark will write it correctly. I apologize if I got it wrong. Hey, you mentioned Tony punches from kicking range by minimizing the damage he takes. I think they mean thus minimizing the damage he takes. Could you explain how he does it? Okay, so Tony Ferguson, if you look back at my breakdown, which is now the last breakdown I believe I have done. And so whenever I am in a position to get back to that, there's a lot of resources you need. That'll be, until then, that's going to be the last breakdown I've done. So it was Tony Ferguson and Habib Nurmagomedov. And it was a breakdown, and among the things it examined is how they make choices in certain distances and stuff. And I was talking about how out at a distance where you and I can kick each other, there are often moments where Tony can punch you from there. To usually punch somebody, you have to step in closer because your leg is this length and reach, and the shape of your body allows it to move a certain way. But with your feet down and you hold your arm out, you know you can get further with your leg than you can with your hand. So normally you have to advance to throw the punch. So that's what they're asking about. I'm not going to explain that just yet. I'm going to try to combine these things together into an idea. So Tony, and being able to punch from kicking range. And that, the one thing about breakdowns is there's 4 minutes to tell some ideas. And I have fun doing them, and I just love building them. And people probably will get on me sometimes about the way that I do them. Some people love them, and some people hate them. And generally that's a good thing. That often is, I will consider that a good thing. Because if everybody kind of likes something, it's probably something that they're very familiar with and it's very common, or, they've seen it a lot of times and therefore it's comfortable. And if there are a lot of people love something, a lot of people really don't like something, it's uncomfortable for some reason. Some of them will eventually come around, or something else will happen that will make them, it'll become more normal to them. And some won't. Some will be like, no, I fucking hate it when that guy talks like that. But I do it because that is authentic. That's how I want to do it. I'm not making myself do it. I have to do it like that. In fact, logically speaking, pulling it back might be a little easier. It's a little less stressful on me. And more likely, some mainstream TV things will be more comfortable with it. Although Steve Becker over at Fox, who is a really cool dude, he really loves them how they are. And there's been talk of maybe at some point I would contribute them in some capacity for Fox, but he really likes them how they are. But I think it's really good to be uncomfortable. But anyway, so that breakdown was about range and about Tony and that. And then this idea is, what are some fighting cliches that you think are true and which do you disagree with? Now, how can we put these things together? And the answer is that they are together. This is the same conversation. Fighting cliches, like all sort of cliches or ideas or sayings, some are true, some are blatantly untrue, and some were true. They were true. And that a lot of things are like that. We're living in the time probably of in certainly every human being walking the earth's lifetime. So if you have a grandmother or a great grandfather that is 103 years old, this includes them in everybody's lifetime. This is the fastest that there has been change on planet Earth and with humanity in every way. Now, I don't know the cycles that this type of speed of acceleration goes on, whether in ancient Egypt they went through periods like this. I don't know if it's necessarily, we often think it's related to technology. So the printing press, everything changed rapidly. Then the internet, and now social media, which is how the internet exists, one of the main ways it exists right now. But is it the technology that creates this rapid change, or is it human cycles of rapid change that create that technology? Whoa. You know what I mean? Like we think, oh, the printing press came along and there was change. Maybe there was just cycles of change, which is what created the ability to make the printing press and have change. But we have never seen change like we're seeing right now in the world. Technology is the simple one because we can all see it. We all know the difference. There's a photo of you holding a phone 8 years ago, and there's a photo of you holding a phone now. You see it. With the technology change comes the change in how everything is done. So even you're ordering things on your phone now, that undermines a lot of things that already existed. But it's a time of disruption. It's a time of huge disruption in everything. We've talked about life being a river. And if you decide to get out, you swim out, you stand on the shore, it's going to go all past you. And then you're going to be in a different part of the river where everything is different. There's other ways that I've heard people describe it. Once I heard that the last thing the fish discover is water. Think about it. The last thing the fish ever discover is water. They're in it. It isn't a thing to them. It's just where they are. And we're in water, of changing water, rapidly changing. And some of us, it happens more as we age sometimes, but not everybody. Sometimes young, you could be 15 right now, and it's so overwhelming how fast things are changing that you're looking for stability. So you make certain beliefs. We as people create certain beliefs. Some of them are, structural and environmental and stuff. Like, talk to the guy who just got laid off at the post office. And he's like, damn it, it was better back. It's just change. Everything is changing, right? Now, and part of this disruption that is going on right now, there are certain people who don't want to see the change. So the world changes around them. And things that used to be true are now untrue, but they still believe it. And that applies to everything, as you see everything changing now rapidly. Technology and life and the way people build buildings and everything is happening right in front of your eyes. And of course, it's happening in fighting too. And it's based on a lot of the same things. So if we go to cliches still for a moment before I go to Tony, we say, those body shots are going to add up in the later rounds. Who says? And then every time we see a fighter that he takes 50 body shots and nothing happens, or you see no visible result, what do we just pretend? Oh, well, I guess that's the exception. No, we're just making a statement that's untrue. We make it because our language is limited in how we describe things, and say the job of commentating, for example, or analyzing. 20, 30 years ago, there was no 1 hour or 2 hour long podcast that you'd put on where you could hear Joe or Brendan or whoever discuss things in detail that would give you a large piece of information. Also, we don't have time to do anything. Time and attention are the two resources right now. It's a time and attention economy. That's what we're in. That's what we live in. And so now you could listen to something if you're really interested in and get way more information. But back then, you had no ability to go and just study boxing because you had a family and you had a life and you had all these things. So all you could do is take what you got. But then we elect like that's true. So most of these things are untrue. We're walking around with these beliefs based on the limitations of language and the limitations of time and the limitations of our ability to study anything, because it's impossible to study everything. You have a life. And so then all of these things come along, it's like, oh, he can't take too many of those leg kicks, or man, he can't take all this damage. He's going to slow down, or even some things that have truth in them, something that there is truth to, with all that blood, you can't submit a guy. Tell that to Darren Elkins, tell that to, or you can't grapple in a particular way. And, any of these things, there's some obvious truth to it, but you can't act like these are absolutes at all. Because the way that you solve these things is, first of all, don't accept that that's an absolute truth and solve the issue. Don't stop doing the thing. So, for example, you can't take too many of those leg kicks. Okay, well, there's a lot of ways you could, if we accept that as true, we must therefore avoid leg kicks. We might slide back. We can check and do damage to him, whatever. But if there was another answer, we'll build up the power, the strength and power of our legs. We're going to armor up a little bit. Maybe there's some kind of thing in a lab somewhere that somebody takes that isn't even illegal. Maybe it's found in the ocean. And now that isn't true. One day, these things that are true will become untrue. And if you live in a world where you think they're true forever, or you're just romantic about the past, that's a Gary Vaynerchuk term, romantic about the past. Go watch that guy's stuff. And he does an Ask show, Ask Gary V. And he was the guy who kind of pushed me towards this concept. His is about technology. Mine is about fighting, but kind of about philosophy, I guess, too. But go watch that guy's stuff. Just enough that all you need to get out of him is the idea that everything is changing. So accept it. That's true. It's the truth. It's the reality. And live in reality. But if you start saying that certain things that were true 20 years ago are true now, tell that to the guy at the post office. You know what I mean? Everything changes. So now we're sitting there, and how does this get to Tony? Tony and many of the other disruptors in the world of fighting. Of course, Conor McGregor is the most famous disruptor. The president of the United States, and I don't want to get into about politics. You don't even have to comment. It doesn't matter to me if you love him or if you hate him. That's not part of this conversation. This is just an objective view. The president of the United States, part of becoming the president was disrupting disruption. It's a disruptive technology. When the president of the United States and things of that colossal size are changing because of disruption, because of the nature of the disruption of humanity and thinking and growth and all these things that are happening, of course it applies to everything. Conor McGregor is what he is because of disruption. He chooses to look at things and go, wait a second, we've all been sitting, and whether this would be a conscious conversation or not, this is my interpretation of it for our sake of conversation. You're looking around and you're like, wait a second, everybody's acted like the world, all the rules and structures and things are acting like the world has been not changed at all since like 1975. And yet I know it has. So all of these people are using these old systems. All I got to do is disrupt it and suddenly take the reality that a lot of the things that they believe are not true, a lot of these cliches, a lot of these, rules and rules of thumb and facts. And I'm not undermining facts here by any means. There are all kinds of truths. Science is a good place to start. But certain things that we are accepting as true, when you get to a disruption period of humankind, some people are like, why are we acting like this thing that a bunch of lawyers decided back in 1976 is true forever? The world doesn't think it's true. And in a world where influence and reach happens, the audience will tell you that that thing wasn't true, which is why you see all these disruptions of all kind. So that's all McGregor has done is he has sat there and said, so where are all the things that people believe to be facts and are acting as if they are facts in the world of fighting and martial arts? And in his case, fame and popularity and money, and he's disrupting on many levels. It's a lifestyle for him. Okay, well, that's where we'll start. We talked about a little last week. If everybody thinks that you have to fight a certain way, the people who are training like that's true, all you got to do is spend a lot of time. You got to be high level. You can't just make shit up. You got to train and learn for a decade or decades. You got to, because there are some fundamental truths in everything. Gravity's real. It hurts to get punched in the face. If you can't see, it's hard to fight. There's some fundamental truths always. But then these fake structures that people have built, you work outside them. So that brings us back to Tony. So I hope this is making sense. Mark, is this kind of making sense? If you see the world, that the world you're in is in a constant state of flux, and you see that there is a trend towards change and disruption everywhere, then you better be part of that trend. You better accept that as real and accept that these massive changes will happen. And can you be part of them? Or can you exist in a world where they happen and it doesn't harm you, or it's fine for you and your family? You just have to accept them. It's true. So it brings us to Tony Ferguson. There are rules in boxing or fighting of any kind that have been believed and said forever. And among them, and I know that on a high level, if you are a high level boxing coach or you are a high level boxer or fighter, the things that I'm going to say, I don't mean you believe them. I just mean kind of everybody around lower than you believed them. Everybody who hadn't really dedicated themselves to it. So you go and take a kickboxing class and they will tell you, you can't lean. You can't overextend. You can't. Coach, why can't I? You just can't. You get knocked out. So then you start training in a scenario, and it becomes the norm that we work in a place where we always need our weight evenly distributed. And that really is good fundamentals. But once you get to a point that these things are natural to you, the natural thing to do is start to experiment, go beyond. Why can't I overextend? What do you mean I can't? What do you mean my foot has to be outside the front? All of these things that we repeat and as truth, maybe we believe them. Maybe we don't have time to go into it. These are all the things that people are going to disrupt. These are all those beliefs. If you go to fight Holly Holm and you believe that you have to keep your left foot outside of the front of her right foot, she's going to knock you out cold. You don't. Why would anyone believe that? Because they heard it. Because it's been said a lot. It's a novice truth. It's not a real truth. It's a former truth when you're young, but as you get better, and that's what Tony's doing. Tony is extending. If I stand here and my hips are above my feet and my chest is above my hips and I reach out here, I cannot touch. This is a simple example. I cannot touch your chin at the same distance my foot can touch your waist. So what if I lean? What if I lean my body? My feet are still in the same place, but my hips or torso or shoulders or all of them have now progressed. So we've got 4 ranges. I can kick from here. I can punch from here. Why can I punch from here? Because my shoulders are at the distance to hit you. And my hips are at the distance to hit you, and my feet are at the distance to hit you. What if I can keep my feet here, but move my torso and body here? I can hit you. It's really simple. And it exists because Tony does it, because you're not supposed to do it. You're not supposed to do that. Who said? Your coach said. His coach said. And this is, if Duke, if you're watching this, or Dwayne, I'm not talking to you guys. You know what the fuck is going on. I'm talking to when we're just having the regular conversation about this. I'm not coming up with anything wild. I'm just trying to explain it. I'm not just trying to explain it in the sense that he moves his torso into range 3 where his hand can reach. I'm trying to explain the how and the why. If that works, then why doesn't everyone do it? That's really the big question. And everyone doesn't do it because of question number 1, because they believe a lot of things that are bullshit. You need to believe truth because truth is truth. But then things that you are told are not all true. They're not all based in truth, and there are millions of examples in fighting. And that's what the disruptors are doing right now. They're breaking all those rules because they were never really rules to begin with. So now what does that mean? Does that mean, okay, well, you shouldn't learn? Because this is then the reaction that people have, which is why we're in a place where everyone's yelling fake news and Eddie doesn't believe that the earth is round and stuff. I love you, Eddie. I think he believes the earth is round. I don't know, though. The earth's fucking round. I think if you don't agree with that one, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't know what to tell you. But so what do we do? Do we go, okay, so, Boxing 101 rule book is bullshit. I'm just going to go in and do whatever I want when I fight. And I'm going to just go in and make it all up. And then I'm going to go, knock your ass knocked out right away. Because you have to start somewhere. And you know why these types of disruptions can work? And you know why you can innovate in these types of ways is because you mastered it all. You mastered it all. It was real. It was real. It was real. You can't overextend until you get to a point that that limitation was there for people lesser than you. It was there for yesterday's you. It was there for you 5 years ago. But now that you've reached mastery, you now break out of all those rules and you change things. I saw my buddy Luke Thomas. There was a little clip, and I didn't get to watch it all yet, Luke, but thanks for saying nice things about me the other day, by the way. But he used the term McGregor bends the universe to his whims, or bends the universe to do his bidding or something. I mean, I think people do that. I do. I think, but it isn't just some mystical thing. You change your understanding of reality. We're spending a lot of time wandering through the world with a reality that's been laid out for us. You can't do this. You must do that. This, it's just bullshit. Doesn't mean you can do anything. It means if you work long enough and hard enough and learn the structures and develop the skills and are willing to fail and so on and so on and so on to mastery, which will take you a decade, decades, months, depending on what the thing is, but no, I was going to say I'm about to sneeze. Stand by. Maybe if I stare. Yeah. Yep. That's what this thing's for, right? We're learning white belt, 1 stripe. It's, what the hell was I talking about? For real, you get off track, but mastery. I said, there's certain things that don't take that long. I think I'm probably wrong about that, because no matter what you can master, you could probably master it better. And the level of what we call mastery goes up. So I think you spend your lifetime, and I don't think you ever really master anything. I think you reach higher levels of it, but that should give you new targets. You know, I don't think there's anyone in the world who's the perfect fighter. Demetrius Johnson may be pretty perfect for 2017, but the best fighter in 2022 or 2030 would murder this guy, because that's where it's going. That's where everything's going. And that's the changing world that you live in. And if you only take one thing from this weird guy who sits in his living room, talking about fighting and weird stuff, it's that you have to identify that the world is different than it was 20 minutes ago, and it'll be different again in 20 minutes, and it'll be fucking different in 5 years. And if you aren't changing, and you aren't looking, and you aren't seeing that it's changing, you aren't acknowledging and accepting it, you're going to find yourself in all kinds of shit. And it's fun to look at the world. It's fun to try to be the fish who actually figures out what water is, that you're in something. It's cool. That's life, man. Come on. All right. I hope I answered the question. So the long and the short of it is, by breaking the rule of don't reach, don't extend, don't put your body way out there, that's how Tony's doing that. You know, he's not the only one. Lots of people do that. Tony does it very, 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 very well. And so why? So what? I'm going to have another thought on that. The why and the how again. But so let's say we're doing that and it's working. Why can Tony do that? Just because he didn't believe it? Okay, I don't believe it either. Now I'm going to get knocked out. Why can he do it and I can't? The answer is, whether consciously or through practice, he didn't accept that you couldn't do this. You couldn't break this rule. It's not a rule. What he did was said, why do most people not do this? That's the risk. Oh man, my jaw's out there. Oh, I'm extending. So that's the risk. How do I minimize that risk? His ability to bring his body back. And when you watch him breakdance, a lot of that, he had to create the connection between his upper and lower body in such a way that he can bring himself back in ways that are too fast for you and your training partners can't simulate, and many other things. So why could this rule be broken? Changing his thinking was a good start. Changing his body, changing how he moves his body, changing his relationship with his body. Lots of stuff. And so the idea of, he does this, he breaks the rule and he reaches, that's this. How? Because otherwise, like I said, I'll do it too. I'll get knocked out. I must solve the problems that made people not do that. And Tony's solved a lot of those. Now other people will start to figure it out. Tony has to stay on the front end of it. He has to continue to evolve. You should have seen that guy moving at those open workouts, man. I was right. I was from me to you away. And he's different. He's made himself different. He's a disruptor. I'm getting worked up. I'm so choked I didn't get to see that fight. Because this is what I exist to do, is to go in and study these guys. And this one's really fucking special. So we'll talk a lot more about Tony. I've got myself thinking about all these things. I love this format of being able to sit and talk for an hour and a half. It's just such a gift. But the flow nature of this type of conversation, all it really forces me to do then is I realize I got 8 different things about Tony that I want to study. Physical thought process, the body, the mechanics of the body itself, that connection. How did he train the connection of his upper and lower body in that way? Now I got to go to my strength and conditioning specialist team and figure that out. But that's the gig. That's the gig. We're discovering water. Okay. So I think we got a good hour today, and I'm sure we spent half of it already, but thanks for hanging with me. It's so cool. I can't even believe how many people are hanging and sharing ideas and stuff. It's so cool. Okay. Oh, this one's the Akasambo. Brother, thank you. Despite knowing what Maya will do, fighters seem unable to stop him. Can my man Jorge break the trend? Okay. Might be on this one for a while too. But it's a gift to be able to talk about Jorge Masvidal. Okay, so yeah, Jorge Masvidal can absolutely beat Damian Maia. Will he? Well, Damian Maia is just as brilliant, and that's why we're going to watch this fight. That's why we're going to watch it, because it's awesome. They've spent a lifetime developing these skills. They're the best fighters in the world ever. Like the fighters we're watching now, you've never seen this art form and this part of humanity that is fighting, expressed at this high level ever in human history. It's so crazy. So I want to think about Jorge. I got a little thing I want to do. Can you see this, Mark, or is it like too shiny?
No, I can see it.
You can see that? Yeah. See that triangle? See, that's a triangle. So this is a concept that's been around for a long time. I have talked about it before on something. If you go on the internet and Google it, there's lots of people that talk about it. You can gather lots of information on it. It's a very simple concept. And when I started studying it a couple of years ago, or studying different aspects of growth and development and stuff, and I came across it, I came home and I was like to Erica, I'm like, have you ever like seen Maslow's hierarchy of needs? She's like, yeah, I learned it in school. Like, what? Like, where did you go to school? Actually, she went to school in Mississauga. But I was like, wow, because like I'm like 43 years old or whatever I was, and I never come across this concept, but it's so interesting. So have you ever heard the term, what a man can be, he must be? Okay. That is at the root of this guy's sort of study, right? So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and literally whoever, the 1,000 people who have assembled even the Wikipedia page, they have a good overview of it. But he has a number of books. It's Psychology Review. The Theory of Human Motivation. That's what a book that Maslow wrote in 1943. And it's not always universally accepted, but it makes a lot of sense. Why am I talking about this? Because I think Jorge Masvidal and many other of the best, Beyonce, you take the example of people who are reaching the best in the things that they do. They are what you call self-actualized. They have, through this, you can study it in this way, progressed in their life to a point that they are capable of becoming their potentialities. So what a man can be, he must be, meaning that you are put here on this earth to achieve what you're capable of, to become what you're capable of. Rogan calls it self-realization or self-realize. I call it self-actualize, or actualizing your potential, becoming what you're capable of. And what's so interesting about Jorge Masvidal is he did it through combat. You know, when I did a breakdown of him, I started out breaking down how he moves, and the fluidity is something very special, but there's a lot. And Mike Brown, who was always one of my favorite fighters and is a good friend now, to hear him or guys like that talk about Jorge, how much they love the guy. You know, now you see this guy going, yo, I'm going to kick this guy's ass. But they love him, like Georgie, they call him. And so I met him, and down in Vegas, it was really cool. He was a cool dude. We're going to, as soon as we figure out how to get Skype and stuff, we'll get Jorge on. We'll chat with him about some of these ideas. But so basically, Maslow's hierarchy of needs kind of gives you the overview that human beings need to kind of take care of certain needs. Okay. And in doing so, they are then capable of going further in their development as a fully realized or actualized person. So the first need, of course, is physiological. That's it's at the bottom. So you got to eat. You got to sleep. You got to drink water. And you probably got to stay warm enough to live. So if there was the zombie apocalypse right now, all the shit that you're doing right now, all the things you do for pleasure and artistic things and whatever, goes out the window, as you got to eat, drink water, breathe air, and stay warm enough to live. That need, when you desperately have to do that to survive, it becomes the only need. So the basics of it, eating, Jorge Masvidal and people like him have achieved that through fighting. How do you eat? How do you have a place to sleep? I'm going to fight. Fight, make money. Make money. Money has become one of the sort of physiological needs. And so he starts there with his life. And then the second one, so after we achieve that, so we're out there, it's a zombie apocalypse, we got nothing, we got to eat, we got to stay alive. As soon as that's done, if we don't have a way to do it again, we start with that need to do it again. That's going to be the definition of who we are. The next one is safety. Now, safety of your physical safety, I don't know if you can read this. This thing is maybe not working that great. Safety, of course, physical safety, fighting, you feel safe. So you become a good fighter. You're not too concerned with, other dudes and what they're going to do to you. This physical safety becomes, not really a big one. But I'm just... Physiological needs, so safety needs. Once a person's physiological needs are satisfied, safety takes precedent. Now, and safety doesn't just mean staying alive. Safety means having enough money to be able to get your physiological needs. It means having some amount of security, job security, etc. Personal security, which Jorge will feel very safe by training and fighting people in backyards as he comes up and develops. His financial security, he makes enough money to be able to take care of his needs by fighting dudes as he gets better, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so you become a backyard fighter, you get a regular job, you're in the gym, you become physical, a great fighter with a future. The next one becomes, love or belonging, right? Belonging. So, hey, you need to feel part of a culture. The thing about coming up as a fighter and coming up where that is his entire world is you get that. Mike Brown is one of your guys and your training partners, and there's a camaraderie and you feel this sense of belonging, something that human beings need to do. When you are 17 years old and you got a job, and you have a place to live, and all your basic needs are met, what do? You go out, you meet people, you try to get laid, you try to get some friends, you hang out together, because that becomes the next thing that in a society like ours, where you're probably eating, you're probably breathing, you're probably drinking water, then you get to a point, you kind of got a job and stuff's working, you need to meet some people, right? So fighting and being in an environment, my Jorge breakdown, I showed some of his fights in the backyard. The camaraderie of that, being a fighter, actualizing yourself as a fighter, a real fighter. This is who the guy is. This is in the root of who he is. All of these things take place by him being him, by him seeking greatness as a fighter. He eats, he's got a place to live. And then he's got a gang of dudes that he hangs out with and probably meets some chicks, because you go fight in a backyard. If there's any girls around, they probably like the guy who just won. You know what I mean? It all sort of comes together. I've chatted with Jorge Masvidal for 6 minutes, but I've analyzed, hours of his fighting, and I can't tell you but I think Jorge will probably say, yeah, that's kind of how my life was as a fighter, living a life, a true life of a combat sportsman, dedicating his life to greatness in fighting. This is who he is. This is how it goes. And all of these things apply for all of us in whatever steps we're taking. Once you've got each one up, you go to the next, and you're able to then focus on the next thing in your life. So friendship, intimacy, family. You got your gym family, the other guys who fucking train as hard as you, they become your family. So the life of a true fighter, like a Jorge Masvidal, kind of rewards itself for the things that he needs to become what he's after. And then the next one, esteem. All right. So we've eaten, the zombie apocalypse has ended. We've eaten, we now started farming. So our safety needs are being met. We have food. We feel stable. Now we got a group of people. Esteem. And a sense, a purpose, I'll tell you what one of these backgrounds says. All humans have a need to feel respected. This includes the need to have self-esteem and self-respect. Well, what happens when you go and you fight? You fight in the backyard and everyone's like, oh, hey, you fucking kicked that guy's ass. He's like 50 pounds heavier than you. The act of chasing this need to be the best fighter in the world, it rewards all of the basic needs of a human. You see it at each step. Becoming a better fighter, you got enough food. You become an even better fighter, you got a place to live, and you've got money coming in, you feel safe. You're in a group of people at the highest level, in a room full of the toughest guys pushing each other, you have a sense of belonging. And then you start kicking people's ass, and you win, you become great at the thing, you have an automatic esteem. You become, and all of these things keep leading you forward, and you can think about it. And there are different arguments at different times where people haven't always scientifically agreed, but there is scientific evidence that these are the basic needs of human and how they see each other. And esteem is a big one. If you get it wrong, rather than self-actualizing, and the top one is self-actualization. I'll write it in there, even though you won't be able to read it. And if you're listening on iTunes or are we self-actualization? It's going outside the line. Or we're not on Stitcher yet, so you're not listening on Stitcher, or you're on SoundCloud. I drew a triangle, Google Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and you will see this exact thing. And if you're watching here, Google it. It's way better than my drawing. As your needs are met, you have esteem, you're able to self-actualize. You're able to now go and truly become your potentialities. You wake up in the morning with all of your basic needs met, and every day becomes about getting better. And by the time Jorge Masvidal was fighting in the backyard, and by the time that he had stabilized his life in a way, all he's been about is becoming the best fighter in the world. And working harder allows you to work harder. And it allows you to learn about accomplishing more in the hours that you have and so forth. And so these top guys, and this was all true of Damian Maia as well, these top guys are self-actualized to the point that they are becoming greater and greater and greater. And Maslow actually felt that there was one after that. I believe it was called self-transcendent. Later in his life, he realized that self-actualization isn't the end, that when you go even further, you become about giving and about making society better and about making others better. But self-actualization at the point where you have taken care of your basic needs, you got the basic shit figured out. Now life isn't about watching 60 hours of Netflix. It's about a man must be what a man can be, he must be. That's what life is about. That's what, when you watch Damian Maia or you watch Jorge Masvidal, that's what you're watching. Yes, we're watching punching and kicking. And yes, Jorge Masvidal's ability to flow within a fight will allow him to not be taken advantage of by Damian Maia's approach the way that others have. But what you can watch, in addition to how guys move their feet or how Tony fights in what Cody Garbrandt is becoming at such a young age, or that crazy knockout, you're literally watching the path to live your life. You're not going to do it fighting, training, fighting in a backyard and then fighting in the UFC. But whatever it is you're doing, it's the same path Jorge Masvidal has taken. It's exactly the same path. It's exactly the same. Figure out the basics of life and don't fuck shit up. Like, somewhere around physiological and safety, money gets introduced. And if all of a sudden you mistakenly become about money, this path stops. This path stops, and if you think money will make you belong or money will give you self-esteem, you're actually not going up there. And I'm not saying money's bad. Money's not bad. Money's cool. Like, we all need it. And more of it is better than less of it. Yes. But if you fixate or things, I need a bigger car. I need a better car. I need a second car. You're stopping. And if you do find those things cool, self-actualizing is probably going to make you become who you're going to be, which is more likely you'll actually get paid for that. You know what I mean? This is life. This is fucking life, man. And when you watch the best fighters in the world, these are the kinds of things that are sitting there right in front of your face. And so when we get into the details, when I get Jorge on in the future, when we've got Skype and a screen pops up and we put it in there and whatever, we'll ask him about as you're going along this, what that is in life. And the truth is, it's a lot of sacrifice. That guy's and when you're talking about a gym like ATT, and they say you're the first guy in there and the last guy to leave, just think of who you're being compared to. The best of the best of the best. And there's all kinds of shit that the Jorge Masvidals of the world don't do that you do. None of them play Call of Duty for 16 hours at a time. Well, actually, Demetrius Johnson plays a lot of video games. And it's interesting when you hear him talk, because you know what? You do need a break, and you do need entertainment, and you do need a release. You got to have that. And for some people, Demetrius is 16 or 18 hours a week is so incredibly hyper-focused that he kind of needs that kind of thing. So I shouldn't say they don't play Call of Duty. A lot of these guys play a lot of video games. But they don't just go about their day trapped somewhere in there, figuring out how, you messed up somewhere in there, and as you got through physiological insafety, you started making money, and you got distracted by money, or you got distracted by sex or gambling or whatever. Sex is great. Gambling's fun. All these things are fine. It's just, if you, instead of focusing your life on becoming everything that you possibly can be, actualizing yourself, improving at something, learning something, and then building on the things that you learn, it becomes easier to learn other stuff. I don't know how to cook. And I was thinking today, I'm like, I think I should start cooking. I should make 2 things a week. And my buddy Evan, we're going out for some food later, and I was like, I should cook something. As soon as that idea hits you, fucking go learn to cook. I'll tell you about my cooking as it gets better, but I'm cooking now, right? Because this is how you're supposed to live your life. Yeah, I cook now. I'm terrible. I'm a white belt, but I now cook, and I'm on a path to be a better cook. My wife's going to be so pleased with that. My wife is going to be so pleased. I'm going to be a decent cook in like 4 months. That's wicked. I'm thrilled. But it's not easy. It's not easy. Just go do some shit. So there's a lot. I know I've only got 15 minutes left. I have so much fun. We got to start booking 2 hours, and I promise I will. But there's not that much time left, and I know I've got lots more questions, but there's a lot of things out there. There are distractions. We were saying it's an attention economy, and it's a time economy. The resource, the biggest one you have, is time. And speaking of time, Mark is signaling me.
Yep.
We're good?
Let's see. Well, the card's full, but we can keep on recording.
Yeah, well, okay.
Keep on.
So Mark was, speaking of time, Mark signaled me because the time on our recording device is getting full. That's your life too. That's your life. Your life, if it's a recording device or it's an experiencing device, it's full. And you want to do other stuff. This is what you're supposed to do. This is how we're supposed to live. This is where we're going. And your thing is full. So you have to clear some of it out. Or you have to get better at using your time. But you have the amount you have. So how you use it is something you can improve, and people do improve it, become efficient and effective and accomplish more. But you also have to make some space. So you got to look at what you're doing. If you are watching too much television, just stop it, because you can do what you want with your time, and that is a choice. But if the difference between learning something and growing, or the difference between watching something that sits you down and takes you away from reality, I don't know, man. It's your call. But just try to learn stuff. It's really important. You'll be happier. You will. I think I'll take 1 or 2 more questions. Akasamba, I'm sorry, man. I'm just like blowing you up right now. You've got so many backed up, and people are sending such cool questions. Okay, this is an interesting one, considering I just talked about Jorge Masvidal and others like him. There's a real this type, and I don't know. Nick Diaz is absolutely like this. Yancy Medeiros. There's a lot of these. It's a nature. It's a fighting nature that some of these guys have. True fighting nature, and so they are actualizing their life as that thing, and that thing would have got them all the women and the leadership if they were leading a tribe at a time where we were warring with other people. Now we live in a different time, and they've been able to actualize that anyway. So super cool. But that nature, there's a real rough nature to that, and in fighting. And so I'm gonna ask, these 2 questions come together. Can you talk about respecting your opponent and showing measure in a fight? So is there a point to continuing to hurt an already badly hurt opponent? That is a really heavy question, because there's a lot of these. I could give you that one answer that in 2 years, somebody will be like, hey, what are the cliches? And they're like, oh, fuck, this Robin Black guy said 2 sentences 2 years ago, and we started to believe him. None of these things are that simple. They're complex, which is the great nature of these kind of open-ended type discussions. You can, even with yourself, you can get into them if you're willing. The truth is, when you go in and to fight each other, every time you fight or every time you simulate a fight, there is a contract. There is an agreement. You make an agreement. You can make it verbally, discuss it, or if you know each other well or you know the environment, there will be an undertone of an agreement that you can accept and both accept, especially if you're both correct in believing what the agreement is. So when you train in a good place, especially now, this is very, very, very common now, is you really are protecting each other. And it's a tough agreement to find the right level to be able to push you, to give you what you're after as my partner in this session, and protect you. Because I want you to push me. I want to be protected, but I need to be pushed so that I get value out of it when I have a real fight. So there's an agreement there. And there are times a couple of weeks out where you will discuss it with certain people about going hard, and they know that's their role, and they know you're going to go hard, and it's a different agreement. 2 weeks out of a fight or the last few training sessions for a lot of people, it's a lot closer to fighting. And that this will be another discussion, what's right and what's wrong in that. But what's right and what's wrong is what's right for you under the circumstances. This is a bit of a tangent, but Dan Cormier and Cain Velasquez and Luke, they got injured a lot and people came down on their team. They were also all world champions. And you can't just go, let's make you the world champion and exactly as you are, but also remove some of the reality of combat you faced. You might remove just that little bit and they don't win. It is an ingredient in their success as well as they pay the price. And like a lot of success, there's often a price. And their price was, we will be world champion if we push this hard and damage our bodies. And again, people will say, well, they should just train lighter. They would be different. The results, the math of what was created in those men would be different. And they may never have been champion. You don't just get to get the same result by changing the thing. It's irreversibly connected. But so there's a price to be paid, but there's an agreement. But the agreement that is made when we fight each other is you will give, in a real fight, is you will give me everything you have. And you will take it as far as you can, because that's what I'm seeking. Every one of those guys. Actually, that is not true. There are people who don't like to fight. They love to train. And it's something that changes and they work with. And I've met quite a few of them, and I was definitely one. I'm not meant to fight. I mean, I was at a very low level. There are high-level UFC guys who they are superseding their natural nature to do it. And that's a beautiful thing. Zach Makovsky and many others have told me it's like, it's a challenge for them to fight. They don't love it, but they love training and learning and growing. And then they change their nature because you can become things. You can become up things. For some people, Jorge Masvidal didn't have to change any of that shit. That shit's in him. That is who that guy is. He's going to go in there and fuck you up, give you everything. And he wants it all from you too. He doesn't want it. If he's right there at the end, he wants you to finish him. He's not going to get finished. But that's what he's seeking. That's the deal that you made. That's what you want from each other. But the top ones, that's what they agree. That's what they are seeking. They didn't grow up and nobody made them go be a prize fighter. They're looking for that. They feel alive. And there are definitely, even in training at times, I've had somebody complain to me that I didn't push hard enough because that's what they wanted. I've heard direct, repeated stories of Rory McDonald dropping guys and then yelling at them to get their asses up because this is his round and he needs it. He's a lunatic. I love Rory. But, this is my time. Get up. Or they'll pause to kind of fix something because I don't want to spar with Rory. I'd never. I mean, I'm not on a level that I could, but even if you were because that's his time. He wants you to give him all of that. And when he goes to fight, what he got from Robbie Lawler was everything he'd been seeking his whole life. So you respect, we talk about respect. I love to see these guys understand that they need each other. So when it's over, really over, understanding that I only got to have this moment of greatness or be tested or be pushed or experience failure, which is so valuable to me, because you. I can only do it because of you. And without you, I could never have had this moment. And so that's why, that again, cliches. Oh man, look at it, the show of respect. What are we even saying? Like that's so flippant, there's so much more than that. It's not just that thing that we then say. There is a shared moment between these men or women. And only they know what the other one experienced. And it is very special. But in the fight, you want to talk about respect? To respect him is to empty it. Give him everything. Everything you have. That's what respect is. That's what they want. That's what the agreement that they've made. That's what they're seeking. That's what they've spent their lifetime seeking. They've spent their lifetime seeking somebody who will push them to the end. And they'll do the same. And they would never have this moment and this experience without the other willing to do it. And so together, they make that agreement that they are going to fight as close to the death. Hey, look, my phone. Oh, I'm going to be doing another Artists of Life shortly after this. So, but they've made that agreement. They want that. And if you respect your opponent, you fucking finish him. You go as hard as you can go, and he would do the same, and you will never have this moment without that. And that's what true respect is in a fight, is right to the end, like as far as you can go. We've agreed that when I'm unconscious, the ref will stop you, and it'll be up to him. And until then, you do what you came here to do, and I promise I will do the same. And that's it's beautiful, man. It's fucking beautiful. To be like that, that's a gift for these guys that they give each other and us. That was really fun. I fucking love doing this. Thank you guys so much. And we're going to do a few more things this week before I take off to see my wife. Love you guys. Blackout.